a very short period of time, I watched 3 versions of Death on the Nile. Because, I'm that nuts. So I also read the book because, you might as well. The book was very interesting. If you've seen any of the movies, they all do the story. So definitely any of them will tell you the story. So I'm not going to tell you the story here. It's about a murder. Surprisingly enough, it's Agatha Christie and Poirot in it.
And somebody did it.
And oh yes, somebody did do it. Yes. And the book is like a jigsaw puzzle. The story in the book is like a jigsaw puzzle. It fits together wonderfully. Like, this is what Agatha Christie does best: a group of interesting characters in a place where they can't leave, and somebody is murdered, and somebody in that group did it. It wasn't a stranger who passed in the night. So, and you have a detective to figure it all out, and it works perfectly. The things I want to say about the book is it is written in 1937 or 1936 when she wrote it, I'm sure. Came out in 1937. And the way that she talks about natives and in Egypt and that sort of thing that's not acceptable anymore. And you know, that's a thing. Yeah, the book was written a long time ago, and that reflects it. It's not that much, but it's sort of, now when you read it, you go, ooh, ouch, ouch. The other thing that was really ouch is that the plot, it starts with a young lady who is used to be with a young gentleman, and now the young gentleman is with another young lady, and this first young lady will not give up on her ex-young man, and she follows him, and wherever he goes with his new wife, she throws a scene, and basically we know that is like stalking. What she's doing is stalking. But the way that the married young lady Lynette asked Poirot to talk to Jackie about it, to Jacqueline, please stop it. She wants Jacqueline to stop following them. And the way that Poirot reacts is problematic, because he tells Lynette, you know, this you have nobody but yourself to blame. This is your own fault. Being stalked by he doesn't use the word stalked because it didn't exist at that time, but being followed by this lady is your fault for stealing her man. And I do understand why, because Agatha Christie is using Poirot to say these things. And Agatha Christie was married, she fought happily, and then one day when Agatha was not at her best, her mother had just died, he comes and says, I want a divorce because I found another woman. So I understand why she is not in any way sympathetic to Lynette, but now in hindsight, which is what I have towards stuff that could have happened 8 years ago, is this kind of behavior ends in murder. And guess what happens in this book? It ends in bloody murder. And
the woman could also have had a mental health issue, which they wouldn't have taken into account at all.
And could have ended up in murder.
Or suicide, or any other really horrible thing.
Exactly. So these warning signs that basically this situation is screaming these warning signs, and Poirot, Agatha Christie by way of Poirot, is discarding that, and he sort of lets the whole thing happen, and that's problematic now. But like I said, it's said then, and stuff did go wrong then sometimes. They didn't know. There's lots of stuff they didn't know in 1937. They were very also not at. They knew that alcoholism happened, but the way that we think about alcoholism now, because alcoholism is also in this film, in this book, one of the characters is a novelist, a lady of now about 40s, 50s, and she drinks and is drunk every night, and they think it's perfectly all right. They call her, if anything, they call her a dipsomaniac, which, and then not do anything about it. Now we would go, oh my god, red flags, alarm bells, ding ding. As time progresses, because now these things happen 80 years ago, in another 20 years it'll be 100 years ago, and we will think about it differently then and again. And so the book is interesting. It's a very good book. I mean, really straight up. The story is wonderful and all these things. But it does age.
Yeah, so it's actually putting the finger on social awareness of things that we are aware of now. That they noticed these things happening then, but they weren't aware of how problematic they were, how pervasive they were, that it ruined life, and that there was something that could be done, that socially people could actually help each other, and that they could be taken to doctors and all sorts of, but they couldn't because the doctors didn't know anything. Yeah. So they were screwed.
They were screwed, and but in the case of the alcoholism, I understand that's not Poirot's purview, but the case of the stalking, that is Poirot's purview. Lynette comes to Poirot and asks, "Can you ask Jackie to quit it?" And then and basically he says, "I'll go talk to her," and he sort of vaguely talks to her, and he doesn't say to Jackie, "Hey, you're doing something that's hurting somebody." Basically, he says to Jackie, "You know, if you go this route, it will be bad for you." And Jackie agrees, but she goes the route anyway. He doesn't in any moment think to prevent what happens, basically the murder of Lynette. She asked him, and in one of the other stories in Murder on the Orient Express, the bad guy comes, the guy who gets killed also asks him, but he was a really thoroughly bad guy. Lynette is just a young lady. She's 20 years old. And he basically ignores her. And that's my view of 2022 about events fictitious events of 1937.
I would filter into that as well misogynism, the fact that men of that age would take young women of 20 and even older women, any woman, not seriously when they come with a problem. And this is not just the 1930s we're talking about. This is when we were growing up in the 80s and in the 90s. Same thing still happening. It's very, very recent that women are being taken seriously when they come up and say, "Hey, this is being done to me."
Yeah, and we now know that it ends badly. I mean, it's not always ends badly, but the chance of ending badly is amplified. And so the way that social interactions, I mean, most of it, except for the stalking, most of it you go, yeah, okay, that's 1937. Miss Van Schuyler has her niece with her, and she makes her fetch and carry for her. For people who've seen the movie, that the role was deleted. Any of the movies, the role was not in the 2022 version and the 1978 version. The character was taken out because she's not that interesting. I think those inclusion of that kind of person who was in 1937 a sort of person that happened a lot, the daughter of, the cousin of, who came along to trips like that because they didn't have any money themselves and that was the only way to see the world. That works in this book, and it still works. It doesn't go away. But the stalking it doesn't work anymore. We know now that it doesn't work. So, book is good to read. Go ahead and have fun and watch any of the movies. They're also goodish to good to really good.
Which one would you recommend?
The 1978 one. It's by far the best. But the 2004 one from the TV show, from the Poirot TV show, is very accurate. So it's straight up the book. You can it's verbatim. So yeah, go ahead. And that is my opinion, and I'm sticking to it.